You're listening to the Navigating Leadership Podcast, a podcast where you get to sit in on conversations I'm blessed to have with leaders from around the country and right here at home. I'm Dave Freund, and welcome. This week, Marisa and I discuss my most recent post, Are You in the Top 10%? Sadly, only 10% of leaders actually lead leaders. So let's join the conversation and see what Marisa's thoughts were. Marisa, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not sure how long my voice is going to hold up.
Yeah, you sound better today than you did yesterday.
That's good. You know, I taught this morning and my voice was great at the beginning of the class, and I sounded like a frog at the end of the class. So who knows? But even our listeners know that, you know, our last podcast, when I recorded my interview with Jack Kleemeyer, I was coughing. But I think I've turned the corner.
Good.
This isn't going to be like last year, God willing, when I was sick for 8 to 10 weeks. But we're going to keep going. And for our listeners, if anybody has any tips and tricks for staying away from upper respiratory issues, other than living in a bubble and keeping a mask on your whole life, send them to me. Because last year was pneumonia. This year, I'm hoping it just, whatever it is, gets done quick. But I'm doing well. And today I kicked off my fall teaching schedule. It was supposed to kick off last week, but I was too sick to do it, sadly. But I kicked it off with a record number of people in supervisory leadership.
In a record number, actually in person too, right?
In person, yeah. Well, I think we may have had more than 18 in the room before, but I'll tell you what, the way I set up the room now in a U shape so everybody sees each other, you can't put more than 18 in. But yeah, we had 25 people. And I think my record number before might have been like 23. So this was awesome. The class sold out well in advance, and we had people asking, can you please make an exception? And we did. We knew that we could get up to 18 in the room, and the 7 were virtual. And actually, from when this comes out, the following week, transformational leadership is sold out as well, which is great. And that would be the record number for that class.
Yeah.
And it's 16. And typically I tried to keep it at 10. And then we wanted to go, well, could you go to 15? Okay, I'll go to 15. And then one company at the last minute said, we were at 13, and they said, we got 3 more. Can you get them in? So I said, sure. So I'm super excited that there seems to be this energy around classes and leadership development, which is super exciting.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I feel like you probably agree that this time of year often feels kind of like January 1st.
Yes.
Where it's like back to school, back to train, you know, all of this kind of picks back up. And
right.
I just feel like you can kind of notice the buzz around many people, just that it's kind of like another fresh start, which I love.
Yeah, I do too. You know, it was a good summer. It was excuse me, there we go. A busy summer. But not busy with classes, but busy with my 360 assessments that I do. So I'm glad to get back in the room. I'm glad to be with a bunch of people. And I did something unique that I've never done before. So I decided that in the class, I was going to pass out like little raffle tickets. And that at the end of each session, because there's 5 in each of these classes, I'm going to do a drawing for another book.
Oh, cool.
I had a bunch of books in there. And so the key is, like, next week I have to do it with my virtual folks. So we're going to figure out how we randomly select somebody in the virtual side. But yeah, I just thought, you know, how can I make them feel valued in the class other than just the training and the materials and the donuts that I always bring in? And I thought, well, this might add a little bit of energy and excitement. And it went over really well. So I don't select the book. I have a bunch of books that I've purchased for things like that, and they get to select from like 5 or 6 books. So it went really, really well today. So I was excited about that. So my blog post that you and I are going to talk about today, Are You in the 10%? So what were your thoughts? You were on vacation and coming back, was in your email inbox when you came back. What were your thoughts?
I thought that it was a good kind of continuation, right? Like I think a lot of us get on somehow get into maybe a more formal leadership role, right? Whether it
Right.
be through a management position or even like a school organization that you're involved in or something. And, initially you've got to pick up some skills and you've got to find some comfort in just doing kind of the first half of this, right?
Right.
Like leading the team or leading the project or, just kind of getting your feet underneath you on what the role is. But um, once you've got that under control, you do really need to think about, okay, like what do I do with this now?
Yes.
And I thought this was a nice link up of, okay, like you need to think now about what your responsibilities as a leader of other people.
Right. Exactly. And, it kind of falls a little bit along the lines of Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership, where level 1 is positional.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been given a title, I have some authority now, and now I'm a leader. Well, you're only a leader in name, so to speak, in title. And it's a very short window where people will give you the permission to lead them until they determine whether or not you're really worth following.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be this leader that is now making a difference in their life and helping them achieve their goals, not just the goals of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I was writing about with this one in the top, are you in the 10%? Only 10% of leaders actually lead other leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want people to think that that means I have to be the bigger boss, so to speak, or the higher up on the org chart. What it means is that I'm a person that is leading other people who are leaders themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting in my class this morning, I kind of threw it out and I said, why do we want to be leaders who lead leaders rather than just leaders who lead followers?
Mm-hmm.
And probably the third answer that I got, and they were good answers, but the third one was it dramatically increases your reach and your influence, which is so true. If I am leading other leaders, those other leaders are now leading other people or are being much more influential with people that I'm working around, and it expands my growth
Mm-hmm.
or my reach rather.
Mm-hmm.
So then my question in my post that went out last Wednesday morning was, how do I do that?
Mm-hmm.
What are the key things that I need to be doing to really grow or to attract leaders? And, John Maxwell in the 21 Laws has the law of magnetism that says, who you are is who you attract.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to start asking ourselves, what are the things that people see in us that would be attracting or be developing leaders to come around us? The first one that I put on here was, and I'm sure you weren't surprised, am I growing?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's an easy one to kind of figure out. Just take an assessment. Am I farther down my journey now than I was 3 months ago? Or what new things have I learned in terms of leadership over the last 3 months?
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to tell us a lot.
Yeah.
So, and then the second one was, do I have a vision? So that was one that kind of makes a lot of sense. Do I have a vision? Am I articulating a vision? But what did you think about the third one? Am I passionate?
Hmm. I see that wasn't one to me that was kind of like, well, yeah, that's a no-brainer. Um, I think I spent a little bit more time thinking about, am I growing and do I have a vision?
Okay.
But I'm sure that is, not the case for everyone, right? But I think I've all coming back to your question about am I passionate? I've always kind of been of the belief that like if you're going to invest so much of your time and your life and your days and your years into something, whether it be a career, project, whatever, then you should be enjoying it and you should be
Yep.
passionate about it. So for me, that was like, well, of course, of course they need to be passionate. Otherwise, what am I what am I doing it for? What am I
Sure.
thinking about?
So how do you, so I know that you love what you do. I know you're passionate about your job, but how do you bring the passion every day?
Hmm. I think a lot of it is just kind of how you show up to things.
Yep.
Like if you show up to things and you're just like, oh, same thing, different day, or like kind of this attitude around like, I'm just here to check the boxes,
Yep.
or we just have to do this. Um, that's not how you do it. I
Right.
think, when you show up genuinely excited about what you're working on. And even if sometimes that excitement is more of like a curiosity,
Hmm.
I think that fosters that same passion.
Oh,
I don't, it's not like you're gonna love every moment.
right.
That's not the reality. But I think when you feel like you're making a difference, you're having an impact, that's where you can fuel that passion.
Oh, very good. I like that. One of the things that I realized today was, and I think it's just because, and I am feeling better, but it's still been over 3 weeks now.
Hmm.
And it just wears you out when, you're sleeping in a recliner and you're hacking and
Hmm.
I don't think I was in the office for almost 3 weeks because I was working from home because I didn't want to be around a bunch of people and get people freaking out as
Hmm.
to what new plague I might be trying to spread. Um, but this morning, I almost always wake up before my alarm. And this morning I didn't. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but it's also a lot darker in the morning than it was,
Yeah.
just a month ago. And
Yes.
so I get up and it's dark and my alarm goes off. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't have much passion today.
Hmm.
I was just kind of like, oh, I would just love to be able to go sit on the boat today or something.
Yeah.
But I realized I was going to have 25 people waiting for me by 8:30.
Hmm.
And these people are investing 3.5 to 4 hours of their day and significant amount of their company's money. And they need somebody who's passionate about what they're doing.
Hmm.
And so I just decided, I decided to show up
Hmm.
passionate. And I have to say that within 15 minutes, the regular real passion was back.
Hmm.
But you'd make that decision. Do you remember years ago when Deborah Searle was one of the speakers that Lived to Lead? She's the woman that rode solo across the Atlantic.
Oh,
It
yes.
might have been one of the ones you missed.
I think I watched it after the fact, though. I think
Okay.
that was quite
Yeah.
some time ago.
Right. And so she's supposed to be, and our folks, our listeners should look it up. Deborah Searle wrote first woman to row solo across the Atlantic. And she was supposed to row with her husband, who was a rower for the UK, an
Hmm.
Olympic rower. What they didn't realize was that once he couldn't see land, he started to freak out emotionally, and
Hmm.
he had to be rescued off the boat. This is a 22-foot boat with a very small cabin and a rowing, location. And she decided that she was going to continue on her own. And she said the greatest battle she had every day was the battle for her mind.
Hmm.
And so she chose an attitude every day and wrote it on like a whiteboard that she could see as she was rowing.
Hmm.
And I thought, so pretty much since then, almost every day I've chosen an attitude,
Hmm.
kind of taken off from her encouragement. And so sometimes, if for number one, if we're not growing, if we don't have a vision and we're not passionate, we not only will not be leading leaders or attracting leaders, we may be having trouble attracting followers.
Hmm.
Okay. So you got to just like suck it up. Some days I don't feel like it. I got to do it anyways.
Well, and I think too, like, especially in the example you gave about today, like passion and attitude are not the same as energy. So,
Yes.
like, I think you probably woke up and you were tired and you're sick of being sick. And it's not that you just decided you're actually not passionate about leadership or
Right.
training anymore. It's that you're human and you're tired, right? I mean, I feel that a lot. I've got 3 small children.
Yes.
I can, you can, and like, I think sometimes that's how you show up. You can even, I can't remember what, it might have been Lululemon, some company shared that like they often start meetings with kind of doing this like clearing. So it'd be like you would show up and you could say, hey, like I'm tired today. So if I don't seem as excited as I normally do about maybe the ideas that we're talking about in the meeting today, it's not that I don't think they're cool and exciting and want to be part of it. It's just that I was up with my baby in the middle of the
Sure.
night and I'm feeling tired. It's,
Yep.
and I think there's power in that because we're not machines, we're not robots. And passion and attitude come from something much deeper within than just your energy, which is something your energy level, I should say.
Yes.
And so just because you wake up tired or you're worn out and maybe need a vacation or a couple of days off doesn't mean that you're not passionate about what you're doing.
Right. And I think too, when we can engage in something that we typically are passionate about, the energy will return.
Completely. Mm-hmm.
But you have to be willing to step out and start doing it. It's kind of like that thing, don't wait till you want to do it. If you do it, all of a sudden you realize that you want to do it, if that makes sense. I might have said that backwards.
Yeah, it's like don't wait to feel like,
Yes, act your way into feeling it.
yeah, you gotta fake it till you make it.
Yeah, and it will come,
Yeah.
but you got to be willing to just get out there and do it, even though you sometimes don't feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
Then in my post, so those were the 3 things that really had come to my mind is these are the things that are going to attract people. People will want to be around a person that's growing, that has a vision and has passion and energy.
Mm-hmm.
But then people that are looking for a leader to follow and that have great um, calling within them or purpose within them, they want to know 3 more things. And the one thing is that I value them, that we as leaders value them.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep telling people in all my classes, when you become a leader, it's not about you anymore. It's about that other person. What
Mm-hmm.
are their hopes? What are their dreams? What are their beliefs? And that allows me to connect. And when people know that we value them, that drives engagement.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're just a number, if we're just another, part of a head count, forget it. We've
Mm-hmm.
lost to begin with. What did you think about my second point there? I need you.
Yeah, I think that so that's different from I value you, right? It's
Like, because
um
I value you as a person for
mhm,
who you are, your uniqueness, that type of thing.
mhm. Yeah, I think of that more of like this thing, whether it be, a project, a career in general or something like wouldn't be possible without you and making
Right.
sure your team knows that.
Yep. Yeah. I think that draws a person in even closer.
Hmm.
I remember when our training attendance and revenues took a leap,
Hmm.
and I was getting all this praise, and I said multiple times, it's wonderful, but it's not me. I'm just showing up in the class.
Hmm.
It was you and other people that were working together to build a system that allowed us to track our outreach, our signups, and so without the team that was working with me, it would have never been possible. Because if there's nobody in the room, I've got nobody to share anything with. So that do we really need that? And when we ask for people's help, when we ask for people's opinion, we're just communicating them that we need them.
Hmm.
And I guess all of us want to be needed.
Hmm.
And then the other one, number 3, was I want the very best for you.
Hmm. Yeah, I really like that one, and I feel very strongly about that. Um, because I think it's really important. I've been fortunate enough to work for leaders who have expressed that to me, right? And who
Right.
like could have very easily done the opposite,
Yep.
um, which I think unfortunately it might be the norm of just like you're here for me, like this is your job, not so much part of your life, right?
Yes.
But I think it's really important to see your employees, your team members, um, as people, whole people.
Yeah.
They have um, they have things in their life that they are certainly bringing to work with them because you actually can't leave parts of you at the door. It is
Right.
physically impossible.
Yep.
So I think it's really important to make sure your team knows that to like these things all compound, right? If you value someone, they can feel that. If you express, that you need someone to be successful, right? By like publicly thanking them or making sure that they're aware, like they feel that. And it adds on to when you do those things, they realize that you do want the best for them. And then
Right.
it comes out in other ways. And I think especially as we work towards a more inclusive workforce, a more diverse workforce. I think I've shared many times on the podcast how I feel about working parents.
Hmm.
I think this is something that is really important to fostering that environment,
Yep.
and knowing that like it's not it's not just about achieving outcomes. It's like,
Right.
and I think that truly drives engagement.
It does. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and when you were talking about the working parents piece, I think that, organizations, if we want society to grow and develop and or even just sustain itself, we need to celebrate the family and make it as easy as possible for families to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And when families thrive, communities thrive.
Mm-hmm.
When families thrive, schools thrive because parents need to be engaged in school,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so, but for that to happen, organizations have to be understanding and have to figure out, how do I make this work?
Mm-hmm.
Because I truly want what's best for that person. And then the other thing that I was thinking about when I look at that, when I that I truly want what's best for that person, sometimes what's best for that person is for them to leave,
Mm-hmm.
even though I don't want them to leave.
Right. I was going to bring that up too. Yep.
And I remember, when I decided to leave SelfLock to come to Macne, um, I never planned on leaving SelfLock. I was going to retire from there.
Mm-hmm.
I was super excited about helping them celebrate their 100th anniversary. So few companies reach 100 years, and we were literally within a couple years of reaching 100 years. And but I had this opportunity, and even before I made a decision, in fact, the same day that Randy Wolken approached me about joining the team, I went and talked to our owner.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, Dan, you just need to know what offer I just got. And he listened, and I was rapidly, or this was not rapid. This was going to really mess up his retirement plans
Mm-hmm.
because he had already bought a retirement home in Fort Myers, and I think he was looking forward to spending a lot more time there. And then I went on vacation. And while I was on vacation, he showed up out at Otisco Lake at the camp we were staying. He knew where we were staying.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife said, "What's Dan doing here?" I said, I don't know. And so he and I stood on the dock and we talked for a while. And he said, my wife and I talked about your opportunity. And he said, if you have a bird that you really care about, you don't keep it in a cage.
Mm-hmm.
You let it fly. And what I said to him was, I said, well, you didn't make my decision easier. You just made it harder. because I realized how much he and his wife cared about me as a person,
Mhm.
and everybody knows I made the decision to leave, and it created a lot of discomfort for everybody.
Mhm.
But I think he really wanted what was best for me.
Mhm.
And that's when you really know how much somebody values you.
Mhm.
So, it didn't negate the 18 years that I spent working there. Um, I was just able to go there about 3 weeks ago, to have a lunch and see how things are going. And I was so excited to see, the growth that's occurring and see the new things they're working on, which kind of meant, I guess I wasn't, even though I left, I didn't really leave
Mhm.
because part of me was still there. And so even with the people that leave us to go to a different opportunity, there's still a part of them with us. They helped us get where we are today.
Mhm.
And we should just always appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've discussed many examples like that where sometimes what's best isn't, to stay, right? And
Right.
there's case study upon case study about, why it's a bad idea to try to convince someone otherwise.
Yes.
If it's purely to benefit the organization, right? Like that just doesn't work out because eventually it comes to a head and it either damages the relationship with the person, damages other people's experiences with your organization.
Yeah,
When your intention is anything but the very best, it will eventually come back
exactly.
to hurt you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, in any of the other notes that I sent you, did anything jump out at you?
Um, there was a note in here about giving folks a seat at the leadership table, which I
Yeah.
know we've discussed before, but it's been a while.
Yep.
And so I think, this is the concept of, bringing someone up to experience something that they typically aren't part of, right? And
Right.
we've we've even talked about it as, okay, they have a seat at the table, but maybe they aren't voting yet, right?
Yes.
They don't have a voting seat yet. But the
Right.
intention is that bringing them to this table, giving them an opportunity to see what is happening and an opportunity to grow into that seat is very valuable.
Yeah. I agree 100%. And I may even ask them, so I may have them at the table and I let the team know why they're there.
Mhm.
And I may even ask them, what are your thoughts
Mhm.
about this topic? But the reality is that there are some people that are responsible for having a vote type of thing,
Mhm.
and that there's others that don't have that responsibility or burden yet.
Yes.
But I think it's really great for them to be able to see how decisions are made and being able to, this is part of that mentoring piece, as if I really want to lead leaders, I've got to look at those that I think have the greatest potential and say, I need to give you these experiences.
Mhm.
Another thing that I was thinking about too was that, a lot of senior leaders will go to a seminar, they'll go to a training. Will take some of your future leaders with you.
Mhm.
We have Live to Lead coming up on November 1st, and it's a great leadership summit for the whole day. And
Mhm.
it's at the Lodge in Skaneateles, which is an amazing place. But what I love to see is leaders that bring 2 or 3 team members with them.
Mhm.
And then they can have the conversations at the lunch table
Mhm.
in between sessions. So, what did you take away from this? And what are you going to do different? And then when they go back to work, there's this common experience that they can dialogue about, which really, I think, doesn't just help with incremental growth, it catapults to a much greater growth.
Mhm.
There,
Yeah.
there was one point here. Um, you know, One of the questions, do they respect me? Well, respect is earned.
Mhm.
So, I would hope that I've earned it. But then that second one, can I challenge them? And as I thought about that question, I think it really goes to, have I connected with them enough and understand them enough so that they understand why I'm challenging them?
Mhm.
Um, Do you have any thoughts about that? Because that's kind of a tough one for me to get my head around.
I think it really is built on like a foundation of trust.
Yep.
So both the question of do they respect me and can I challenge them? I think before that, the overarching question is, do they trust me? Because if the answer
Right.
to that is no, then I don't think you'll get
Yeah.
much further. And you have to do that part first. But I think if
Right.
someone trusts you and understands that you value them and that you want the very best for them, that there's a way to likely use your crucial conversation skills,
Hmm.
get that toolkit out and and challenge them. And it's not in a confrontational way,
Right.
but just you know, for, and it's I think to find mutual understanding.
Sure.
And there's a way to do that.
Yep. Absolutely. You know, and then I love this other point here. Will I empower them? Um, there
Not
needs
can I, not can I, but will
Yeah,
I?
will I? You know,
Hmm.
because clearly we should be, if we've trained them, if
Hmm.
there's competency and there's clarity of mission, they should be empowered to do it. But will I do it? And a leader that can't say yes to that will never lead leaders.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a hard one. That's tough because you have to be willing to make like to let go and
Right.
to let the person fly. And it might not be the exact path that you would have taken,
Hmm.
but it
Right.
doesn't mean it's wrong.
Right.
Right. And I mean, that's something I've really, really, really had to spend time on and continue to have to think about and develop in myself because for so long it was just me.
Right.
And a lot of the things that now a department of people are doing, it was me and it was done my way because I was the only person doing it. And it's it it was tough and sometimes continues to be tough to
Right.
let go of new things as our team grows, but then it is so fulfilling
Yep.
to see. And I would believe it's probably also fulfilling for the other people, not just for me, but to like
Yes.
to see that transition happen. And I think more times than not, I've reflected back on it and said, like, what was I waiting for? This is so much better.
Yes. Oh, I love it. That's great. What was I waiting for? This is so much better. I love that. That's awesome. Anything else that you can think of that we didn't cover that we should have?
Oh, I think we covered a lot. And I just think, at the end of the day, it's really these are some really great questions to ask and
Hmm.
to reflect on, especially
Right.
like, are you valuing your team? Are you might know that you need them, but do they know that you need them?
Yes.
And these are things that like you don't deliver once. You don't sit down annually and just say, well, I need you and
Right.
I value you. It's that these are things that you have to show day in and day out and continue to show up with. It's,
Right.
ingrained in the relationship you have with your people.
Awesome. And when we do, we will really be leading leaders.
Mhm.
Awesome. So, hey, do you have anything fun planned for the next few weeks? Or is it just school started and I need to get them assimilated into school?
School started, but I am hanging on to what I'm calling second summer.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
so just still trying to fit in as much fun as we can.
Good.
Once it I don't ski. So it's hard for me to be interested in winter and
Yeah.
there's less sun and I'm feeling kind of down about it, but I don't want to feel down about it. So I'm going with second summer.
There you go. And you know what? You know how much I love winter. I'm not
Hmm.
ready for it. I'm still enjoying summer.
Oh, good.
I'm just about so that big deck expansion project that I've been working
Mhm.
on for too long, the railings are going up. So
Nice.
it's
Nice.
there. The kids loved it. They love being able to jump into the pool off something that's a little bit higher than it
Mhm.
was before. But yeah, so I'm in it with you. I'm ready for second summer.
Good.
So hey, Enjoy the rest of your summer, and I look forward to our next conversation. Take care.
Thank you.
I love the perspective Marisa shared. She identified growth and vision as the two keys to attracting leaders to our team. During our discussions about passion for our job, the conversation centered on choosing to show up and acting our way into feeling something rather than waiting to act until we feel like it. The reality is that when we engage in something that inspires us, passion will follow. I always love my conversations with Marisa. Her perspectives are so valuable for my growth and my development. If you're not receiving my blog post but would like to, I placed a link in the show notes. In our next episode, we'll be joined by Derek Dorsey, the Executive Director of the Central New York School Boards Association. I look forward to hearing Derek's perspectives and insights in our educational system in 2024. I hope you'll join us.